Hey everybody, Mr. Skorecki here. I want to go ahead and give you the intro to what we're going to be talking about in the Age of Exploration unit. Um, the Age of Exploration happens right after kind of the Renaissance period we've been talking about. It's kind of at the same time, and it takes a lot of time afterwards. It's not one set period, but it's important we go over it because it really changes the way the world interacts with each other. Beforehand, Europe was kind of isolated, and now it becomes a major player. And it's not the best way. So we're going to look not so much at how they did it, because it's kind of straightforward. They sent out people, they found areas, and they said, oh, they discovered them, but people were already living there, so they didn't really discover it. So we're going to focus on the problems. If you look at the screen, you can see the problems with exploration. We just want to see what happened. Basically, we're going to ask you to evaluate the impact of European exploration. What that means: what happened? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it something in between? There's the standards on there, and again, if you have other questions about the standards, please let me know, and I will happily explain them to you, but they're kind of a paperwork thing. I did love this surprise guy at the rave meme. Dora the Explorer. I'm sure many of you either saw when you're growing up, still watch today, or maybe you have, young ones around you that watch it. But yeah, Dora the Explorer, the Spanish word for someone who explores is exploradora. You can kind of see where they get that. I always thought that was funny. Alright, so next. Why did the Europeans go out and explore? Well, at first it wasn't so bad. They said, hey, we have all these new ways to figure out what's going on. We can observe things with telescopes. We have ships that can now travel further and faster. We have all the infrastructures, all the ways people communicate and deal with each other that make this easy. So they would find these places. The problem was they said, hey, this has nice stuff that would really benefit us. Let's get it. And so they kind of turned from explorers to conquerors. Conquistador is the Spanish word for it. Spain and Portugal were some of the first people to really do this at length, so you always hear Spanish words being used for it. They also sent missionaries to convert the people, whatever their faith or culture was, to change it to Christianity. And then they sent people that would try to permanently settle in an area. This didn't always happen. Sometimes they just kind of use the marketplaces there to help their economy. And then they would actually make them colonies. Some places weren't colonies, but they were just plain controlled by a European nation. This includes places in Africa, Asia, and what they called the New World: Latin America, North America, South America. Places that people had been for centuries, but suddenly they were being discovered. This is just a term that you probably should know when something comes up, because it's one of the big buzzwords that goes along with it. It's a Columbian exchange. Basically what would happen was a lot of the goods that we see in the grocery store today, a lot of nutritional things we know, are actually from South and Central American. There were a lot of crops there that were nutritionally dense that allowed basically to help cure a lot of diseases because they were nutrients that the Europeans weren't getting, and other places weren't as well, that could only grow in these areas. Potatoes, corn, tomato, sweet potato, all of these were originally from Latin America, South America, Central America, some from Latin America. Okay. So they would take those, the European traders would take them from there to Europe where they could enjoy them. They would also trade from Europe the stuff that they made in Europe, which was liquor and guns. The Chinese actually invented gunpowder, but the Europeans are the ones that actually made it into a portable, kind of lightweight weapon. The Chinese had similar things, but they weren't quite the same technology. And so from Africa, they sent a lot of things. Basically, this was a trade between 3 continents. This really wasn't happening before. They would trade along the Silk Road, yeah, but it was not this complicated sea-based travel. And to this day, most of our trade happens across oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific mainly. Everything you've seen at the store that says made in China or made in El Salvador, traveled by ship, guaranteed. You can see the specific things that came through, but you can also notice the transmission of certain diseases. You'll see smallpox, malaria, typhus, measles. One of the problems that happens when you have people from all these different regions around the globe coming together is that they spread diseases easily. Here's some other parts that are kind of a problem. You can see there are slaves being used. This is where slaves existed before. Pretty much any major civilization had some form of slavery, no matter what continent it was on. But this is the first time that they're taking people in large numbers, and by they I mean humans, taking other humans in large numbers from one place to another to work and treated them as property. This was pretty bad. Look at this map as I go through these different parts here. When we talk about some of the things we know as concrete facts that happened because this European age of exploration. First off, the native populations in different areas were destroyed by disease. Not so much in Africa, but in South America and Central America, European settlers, or European explorers, had built up immunities to horrible diseases. Remember the Black Plague? That didn't happen in Latin America. But also things like smallpox and measles. There were people that would die from them, but basically the people could carry small amounts of it and pass it on. So sometimes it was on purpose, sometimes not. Large populations of people that were already in those areas were destroyed by disease more than anything else. Gold and silver. Remember the trade? All that trade benefited Europe more than it did the other ones. Okay? Create a new economic system. Okay? And new products are introduced across it. That's that Columbian Exchange. Remember I told you it was going to come up? It's going to, anytime you talk about this, people bring it up. Okay? It then turns into a competition. How many how many areas can your country take over? Oh, maybe you're like France. You only have you have nothing in, North and South America. Spain's beating you. That's what they thought it was. They thought it was a competition, though you could have winners and losers. No one really wins when this happens. If you look today, you can still see things all around the world. Even though we have the United Nations and a lot more cooperation, and the trade routes are much better, Africa and parts of America really don't like dealing with Europe, and by extension the USA, because the USA tends to mirror a lot of Europe's decisions. They have the whole reason that it's called Latin America, because it's mostly Spanish speaking. People did not originally speak Spanish there. The conquistadors, those conquerors from Spain, came and took over and said they had to speak Spanish. Now that's now a rich part of the culture. You still have to remember that's because someone came in and told them it was wrong and forced them to. Imagine if someone came into America and said, oh yeah, you're now speaking Chinese Arabic. You say why? It's because we've taken over the country and that's what you need to do. Even if, centuries later, you'd still have some problems with it. The idea of Europe as this powerful continent spreads throughout the world. Europe is technically a continent, but it's kind of attached to Asia. It gets this special status because it was able to go and basically conquer everything. And you see something called Eurocentrism, where people assume that everyone around the world is just like Europe, and that's not true by any definition we have, but people still think it. There's Central and South America speak Spanish, or Portuguese is another common one. There's some French too, but it's mostly Spanish and a lot of Portuguese. Brazil, for example, the biggest countries in South America, speaks Portuguese, which is from Portugal, which is by Spain. It's just that huge linguistic influence. African countries were destabilized. What that means is that they had functioning governments because of the way slavery and the unequal trade with European countries happened. They lost power, and a lot of African countries, whether they mean it or not, say that this is a big part of it. The last thing you need to realize is the U.S. is a result of this. Native Americans were treated horribly so that we could have land. And it might not have been something your ancestors did or mine, but that's kind of what happened to the U.S. So if you think, oh, something happened way back then to other places, no, it happened here. Not the most pleasant topic, but we're not going to be honest with ourselves if we don't address it. All right, that's the introduction. Answer the questions that follow, and then go ahead and work on the other assignments for this unit. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to talk to you. Maybe we can actually talk about something a little more uplifting. And I'll talk to you then. Bye.